Hi, Namaste. My name is Henry Judicare. I'm a French-Canadian hypnotherapist, psychotherapist that has worked with thousands of clients. My special field of interest is brainwashing and mind control by cults. Today, I would like to present to you an interview with Henry Doktorski, who wrote the book Killing for Krishna. In this book, he described how Bryan, whose Hare Krishna name was Sulochana, was killed in Los Angeles by a disciple of KIRTANANDA that you see here. KIRTANANDA was a prolific pedophile, and Bryan was about to tell the whole world about the activities and the perversions of aka KIRTANANDA. In his book, Henry talks about the many so-called devotees of Krishna that were involved in the murder of Sulochana. Some went to jail, like this guy, and most of them just have disappeared in the society at large. But there is one who has managed to become one of the main spiritual master, guru of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. His name is SLAVIN. His Hare Krishna name is RADHANATH SWAMI. Now, if there's one person that I despise at the present moment in the Hare Krishna movement, it is SLAVIN. You see, he never came out clean about his involvement in the murder of Sulochana. He has lied, he has deceived his followers, saying that he had nothing to do with that murder. But as you will see in the testimonial of Henry, SLAVIN was deeply involved in this murder. And now, what absolutely galled me is that Richard is going around the world like he is a saintly person. He's accepting that people worship him, like this video that we see here, where people wash his feet with honey and milk. And by the way, his follower will drink that mixture that has washed his feet, thinking that they will have great spiritual realization by drinking the dust that has washed his lotus feet. He is, in my opinion, a dangerous hypocrite that has no true spiritual realization, but he is accepting followers. He is accepting the worship of his disciple. They are thinking that by serving him, by worshiping him, by singing his name, they will become lovers of Sri Krishna, and eventually they will be transported at the time of death to the planet where Krishna reside. This is a very big scam, ladies and gentlemen, and he plays the part very well. He acts very humble. He seemed to have all kinds of knowledge about the scripture. But at the same time, he never said a word against SWAMI Bhaktivedanta, stating that homosexuality is demonic, stating that the black race is an ugly race, stating that Adolf Hitler was a gentleman. He toes the line of the philosophy of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the good and the bad. We must remember that Richard has been a follower, practically a worshipper of KIRTANANDA. For years and years he knew that Keith was a pedophile and was abusing young boys, but he said absolutely nothing. He worshipped KIRTANANDA till the very end. Here we see RADHANATH bowing down in front of the dead body of Keith in India. I am making this video so that the present disciple of Richard SLAVIN investigate who this guy is. What does he have in his subconscious mind? What kind of lies and deceit is he carrying in his heart? I am making this video for those of you that might be thinking to get initiation from this false, fake guru. Now you have to remember that psychologically, when you take initiation from a guru, you become karmically in union with that guru. You will be asked to sing his name every day. You will be asked to bow down to him and his pictures. You will be asked to serve him, to give him your time, your energy, your money. And if this so-called spiritual master is a false, a fake guru, you will not end up with more light, with more love in your heart. You will end up confused. And then you will have to defend the lies and deceit that he has been dishing out to hundreds, possibly thousands of people over the years. I have a great admiration for Henry. He is trying to shed light on what happened to Sulochana. He is trying to shed light to that chapter of what did happen in New Vrindavan with this monster guru, KIRTANANDA, Keith who was a prolific pedophile. This interview begins by me asking the question to Henry, why did, after so many years of serving a spiritual master, Keith why did he finally said, I don't want to serve you anymore? And then we will go into the case of Richard SLAVIN. So what exactly happened that you finally broke your relationship, guru-disciple, between you and Kirtananda?
Actually, I was a dear disciple. And I think a lot of people in the community respected me for that, because I was very dedicated to my spiritual master and to building the community. And I really had a lot of love in my heart. I saw him as a very wise and compassionate and spiritually realized man. But at one point in 1993, I think it was soon after the Winnebago incident, and I heard my godbrother, Sarvabhauma, he said, he was driving in the Winnebago, and in the back, he caught some glimpses of his spiritual master with a teenage male disciple in the back, Malaysian disciple. And so I did a little research. There was a trial 2 years earlier where Bhaktipad was found guilty in Martinsburg, West Virginia. And I made some phone calls, and I found out that the trial transcript was in the Elkins courthouse. Elkins is another part of West Virginia. And so I drove to Elkins, went to the courthouse, and I got to read the trial transcript, and it's like several thousand pages. But I was specifically interested in what the teenage boys had spoken. So I found in the index where there are two boys, 2 or 3, who were called to testify against Bhaktipad at this trial, and they said, yeah, he was playing with my genitals, giving us fellatio like that. I knew one of these boys pretty well, actually. We both lived in the basement of Bhaktipad's house in the Brahmacharya ashram there together around 86 or so. And I thought, why would he lie about this? So and later on I did contact him directly, and he confirmed it, and there are other boys also that I talked to also that it was like Bhaktipad's boys. He had a whole ashram in his house in the upstairs, and at night it was only him and the boys. It was just like a 10-second walk from his bedroom door to their ashram. And he would at night, if Bhaktipad was feeling frisky, he'd walk over there and wake up one of the boys and said, "Come over," and the boy would get out and then go over to his bedroom where Bhaktipad would enjoy giving fellatio to the boy. So when I heard this stuff from people that I trusted, I knew that there was a lot going on that shouldn't be going on. And so then I went to see my spiritual master. He was at the time living at a cabin in Silent Mountain, which is about 20 miles south of New Vrindavan, in a stone quarry. And I just asked him if these stories are true, and he denied it. He said, "I've never broken any of the regulative principles since I met Srila Prabhupada." And I knew he was lying. So basically, that's the last time I saw him in person. We did correspond years later when I'm starting to do my research. When he was in prison, we corresponded, and then sometime after that, even when he was released. But so that's how I lost my faith, because I had evidence which I trusted that said that he was a liar. I've been there and I've done it as far as deranged devotion goes, and that is, giving your heart to a charlatan, someone who doesn't deserve your unalloyed devotion and surrender like that.
Many of the characters that you described in your book, Killing for Krishna, are now dead, or they have disappeared in the society. But Radhanath, Richard Flavin, is now a very important guru in ISKCON, and no one knows exactly how he was involved in the killing of Sulochana. So I would like you to tell me what you think was his involvement in the killing of Sulochana.
Well, Henri, I don't think I agree with your statement that no one knows what was Radhanath's involvement in the conspiracy to murder Sulochana, because there are people who do know. I mean, for instance, THIRTHA, Thomas Drescher himself, who pulled the trigger and murdered Sulochana in Los Angeles in May 1986, he certainly knows about Radhanath's involvement. And also John Sinkowski, who was part of the murder plot and hunted for Sulochana in California in January and February of 1986. In fact, THIRTHA joined him in Los Angeles, and they met with Rameshwar Swami security disciples and discussed different ways to dispose of the body. They traveled to Apple Valley. It's a desert in California, part of the Mojave Desert, where they examined mine shafts, abandoned mine shafts, which they thought that they would dispose of Sulochana's body. So, I mean, THIRTHA, Janmashtami claims that he was recruited by Radhanath Swami into the conspiracy. And there are still others also. Kaladri himself, Arthur Villa, he was the president of New Vrindavan at the time. He was in charge of the money. And due to his influence as the temple president, he was able to, at times, provide funding for the surveillance of Sulochana. And he undoubtedly spoke with Radhanath about this. So, and there's others too, such as Gora Shakti, Gregory Carlson, and even Jyotir Dham, Joe Pollock, who was in charge of the telephone service at New Vrindavan. He has written a 12-page article about his involvement in the plot, and he incriminates Radhanath Swami also. So there are people that are still alive that know of Radhanath Swami's involvement in the murder plot. All right, based on my research and interviews with people who were involved in the murder plot, Radhanath, he provided some of the quotes from Shastra which explain how a very dangerous person who is threatening the devotees of the Lord should be dispatched to his next life. Radhanath personally recruited Janmashtami into the murder conspiracy, and Janmashtami says that he actually asked some Bhagavad Gita related questions to Radhanath, but Radhanath flattered him, and then he quoted the Gita, saying that one who knows the truth, whatever utility they have to accomplish the goal like that. So, and then Radhanath apparently also preached to THIRTHA. In fact, some say that Radhanath flew to California at the time of the murder, or right before the time of the murder, to help inspire THIRTHA to continue on with his service of assassinating Sulochana. And it also, evidence shows that Radhanath also flew to Los Angeles in January of 1986, and that was to meet with Rameshwar and secure the cooperation of the new Dwarka Kshatriyas, so that the devotees from New Vrindavan who were in California, such as Janmashtami, such as THIRTHA, would be able to have assistance from Krishna KATHA, for instance. That's Jeffrey BRIAR, who was in charge of security at Los Angeles, and he carried a weapon. And Krishna Katha speaks at length about this in court, about his involvement in hunting Sulochana and assisting THIRTHA in the murder. So Radhanath was a Brahminical advisor, basically to assure the Kshatriyas that they were following the will of Krishna by assassinating, hunting and assassinating Sulochana.
Did he make any comments after Sulochana was dead?
Let's say I met with my godbrother Ramachandra, Richard Kusino, around at the funeral of Muktakesh. That was Ronald Burstein. And during our conversation, Ramachandra, the topic turned to Sulochana. And although Ramachandra was not involved, he told me he remembers that the day at New Vrindavan, it was the morning service of May 22nd, 1986. They were celebrating the appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev. And there was an announcement saying that Sulochana had been killed in Los Angeles just a few hours earlier. And there was a lot of talk in the temple room. And Ramachandra told me later he went to Radhanath Swami, who was at the time the second most highly respected person at New Vrindavan. Only Bhaktipada outranked him as far as spiritual realization, our perception of spiritual realization went. So Ramachandra asked Radhanath. And Radhanath was very approachable in those days. He wasn't a big guru. He wasn't even a guru. He was basically a trusted advisor. People loved him because of the humility he projected and the wisdom he which was apparent in his speaking. So Ramachandra approaches Radhanath quietly and he asked. He said, "Do you know who killed Sulochana?" And Ramachandra told me that Radhanath replied, "No, I don't know who killed him, but whoever it was, they were doing devotional service to Krishna." So this indicates that Radhanath really thought that Sulochana was a demon that should be destroyed and sent to his next body. Radhanath, in addition to serving as a Brahminical advisor, also helped transfer the funding which was needed to get THIRTHA and his family to India safely before law enforcement caught up with him. This is interesting because Radhanath and THIRTHA, the murderer, were very close. THIRTHA lived in Ohio for several years. After the murder of Chakradhara, he was actually banished from New Vrindavan. And he lived in Ohio, and THIRTHA tells how much association he had with Radhanath Swami in Ohio. At the time, Radhanath had a half a dozen preaching centers and vegetarian cooking classes at different universities and colleges in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. And THIRTHA says how he assisted Radhanath, even by driving him from one preaching engagement to another. So they were very close. They were very close. And then, so jumping ahead now, when the murder happened, all right, this was on a Thursday. THIRTHA comes back to Ohio on Friday, and he was told that he should fly to India with his family, where he would be sheltered by one of Bhaktipad's very wealthy disciples in Bombay. But THIRTHA didn't have enough money. In fact, the community still owed him some $6,000 or $7,000. They had made an agreement that THIRTHA decided what his expenses were going to be, and he said it would be $8,000. The community has to pay me, and I will do the service of dispatching Sulochana to his next body. It was not a murder for hire. THIRTHA he did the service just out of love for his guru, out of duty. But he didn't have the money to pay for all the airplane tickets and the surveillance costs and you name it that he needs to do. So he needed this money. He needed it fast. So he made phone calls to Dharmatma, to Dulal, to Kaladri, and none of them were going to give him any money because they were afraid now, because they're all involved in the plot now and the conspiracy, and they became fearful because they didn't, they knew that they had worked together to kill this devotee in Los Angeles, and they were very, very much afraid of helping Tirtha anymore. So Tapapunj steps in, and Tapapunj and Radhanath are also very close. In fact, they used to live in the same apartment at Bahulaban around the early 1980s. So they were very close. So Tapapunj wants to help Tirtha. He and Tirtha are friends. So Tapapunj and Radhanath come to New Vrindavan to talk to Bhaktipad to get him to authorize the escape money for Tirtha. This happened on Sunday after the murder. It's already been, Friday, Saturday, so it's been 3 days after the murder, and Tirtha is like desperate to get this money to fly to India, where it'd be much harder for United States law enforcement to catch him. So Radhanath and Tapapunj go to New Vrindavan, and Tapapunj claimed it took him 10 hours to convince Bhaktipad to authorize the funds. And that's a whole other story in itself. But when Bhaktipad drove to Dharmatma's house, Dharmatma was the Sankirtan leader, he often had thousands and thousands of dollars in his house from the collections. The Sankirtan devotees would bring Dharmatma the collections, and then from there maybe it went to accounting and into the bank. But Bhaktipad drove to Dharmatma's house to get the money for Tirtha's flight to India in the company of Radhanath. And we think, well, why would Radhanath accompany Bhaktipad? And I personally think that at this time, Bhaktipad, it had only been a year or less since his head injury, and he was very forgetful. He had anterior grade amnesia, which means you forget things. Short-term memory becomes very compromised. So I think Radhanath went with Bhaktipad just to make sure Bhaktipad did not forget why he was going to Dharmatma's house. So and Dharmatma talks about this. He says, yeah, Bhaktipad and Radhanath drove into my driveway. They tooted the horn. I walked out. Bhaktipad says, you got $6,000 in the house. And Dharmatma says, I think I do. He goes in. He gets the money, gives it to Radhanath in the bag. Radhanath passes it to Bhaktipad. Okay, so then eventually that money gets to Tirtha, who's staying in a trailer park near Kent, Ohio. And Radhanath, it's only a few miles from Radhanath Swami's Kent preaching center. And it was Tapapunj and Radhanath who brought Tirtha the bag of money. And this was confirmed none other by Tirtha himself in a letter to me. He wrote that Radhanath brought him a bag of money after the murder. So it's really, there's a lot going on, and a lot that Radhanath has denied.